The project focuses on the most significant eventees and how he survived the concentration camps. However, the central theme will be human cruelty, or in this case, Nazi cruelty. But first, who is Elie Wiesel? Elie Wiesel was a Holocaust survivor who lived through the events of 1933 to 1945. He recounts all the horrors he was forced to endure in the concentration camps during that era. He transformed these experiences into a book. He details everything he lived through. The most important events. Well, there are many important moments in the book night, so I'll try to include the most significant ones. I will put them in chronological order, from 1 to 6. The first event, the beginning of the end in Siat, 1941 to 1944. Moshe the Beetle. He is expelled from Siat and witnesses massacres. He returns to warn the Jews, but no one believes him. My opinion on this point is that if the Jews had believed him, they would not have been captured and sent to a concentration camp. They would have been, if only they had believed him. The next of it is as follows. The creation of the ghetto. In 1944, the Nazi entered Hungary. The Jews of Siat were confined in ghettos before being deported. The train journey. The Jews are herded into cattle cars. Mrs. Schachter has vision of fire, foreshadowing the crematoria. In my opinion, they should have fled the moment they saw the Nazis arresting the Jews. But no, they felt they had to stay put. Consequently, they were arrested and crammed into train cars, the kind used to transport livestock. Later, they saw flames rising, the crematoria. Some did not know what fate awaited them, though others knew exactly what was in store. But if only they had heeded Moshe the Beetle, perhaps they would have survived. Anyway, let's move on to the next point. The arrival at Auschwitz-Birkenau. The selection. Elie and his father are separated from his mother and sisters. He never sees them again. The lie of age. On the advice of another prisoner, Elie, claiming to be 18 years old instead of 15, to avoid being sent directly to the gas chamber. Loss of faith. Upon seeing babies thrown into the fire, Elie experiences his first profound spiritual crisis. I shall never forget that night. In my opinion, Elie suffered greatly at this point in the story. His heart broke when he saw babies being thrown into the fire, and when he realized what would happen to him if he didn't lie about his age, that he would be sent to the gas chambers. From this point onward, the story becomes truly horrific. All right, let's move on to the next one. Life in the Buna camp. Forced labor. Elie and his father work in a warehouse for electrical parts. The hanging of the Pipple. A young angelic boy is hanged. His slow agony makes Elie feel that God has died on the gallows. The foot operation. Elie undergoes surgery on his foot due to an infection. Shortly thereafter, the camp must be evacuated in the face of the advancing Russian army. In my opinion, Elie lost hope in God after hearing how a child was being hanged. That shattered him, broke him into 1,000 pieces, with that single phrase he uttered, "God is dead at the gallows." That statement demonstrates that he had, indeed, already lost his faith in God. Well, let's move on to the next point. The Death March. The run in the snow. The prisoners are forced to run for kilometers in extreme cold toward Gleiwitz. Anyone who stops is shot or freezes to death. Rabbi Elia's son. Elie notices that the rabbi's son has abandoned him on purpose. Elie prays that he will never do such a thing to his own father. Juliek's last concert. In the overcrowded barracks at Gleiwitz, Juliek plays his violin Beethoven before dying, a final act of defiance and humanity. My opinion at this point in the story is that Elie possessed an incredible amount of willpower not to die during that march, though here he regained some measure of faith, albeit not much. He simply prayed that he would not abandon his father, as the rabbi's son had done to his own father. However, what restored some of his peace of mind was witnessing a man playing the violin just before he died. His final song was a piece by Beethoven. Let's move on to the next point. The transport to Buchenwald. Fights over bread. German civilians throw bread into the train cars to watch the prisoners kill one another over a single crumb. The death of Shlomo the father, weakened by dysentery and beatings. Elie's father dies in January 1945. Elie feels devastating guilt for being unable to respond to his father's final cry. In my opinion, this point in the story is the most painful for Elie because he lost his father. Yet what devastated him most was being unable to mourn his death for, as he himself stated, he felt nothing. That is what destroyed him. The level of cruelty at this juncture is truly unbelievable. Now let's move on to the final point. Liberation. Resistance and tanks. On April 11, 1945, American troops liberated Buchenwald. The mirror. The book ends with Elie looking at himself in a mirror for the first time since Siyat. He describes the reflection staring back at him as a corpse. In my opinion, this is the happiest point in the story, because it is when they are rescued all, though I didn't like that part very much, since they only saw themselves in a mirror, and when they looked at their reflection, they looked like corpses. Well, in the end, I must admit that this is a very good book about World War II. However, what I liked most about it is how it hooks you into the story. Anyway, this is my project. Oh, and one last thing, I won't be answering any questions.